Welcome to AKTV, the bi-weekly movie news opinion show. Today's topics of discussion are Squid Games Season 2, the Mr. Beast games, the Batman delay, Denis Villeneuve's thoughts on making more Dune content, and the death of a director, and much more. To start this episode off, what should you see in theaters this week? Well, Wolfman is probably my top pick. It dropped on the 17th. It's written and directed by Lee Wennell. Big fan of his. He co-wrote Saw, all the Insidiouses, and he wrote and directed Invisible Man and Upgrade. So that would be my biggest recommendation. And then Flight Risk drops on the 24th. It's directed by Mel Gibson. I have my hopes set high, my hopes set high, my expectations set low for it. So those would be my two recommendations that are coming up around the time that this video drops. Now, first thing to talk about is Squid Games Season 2 and my thoughts on it. It's a mixed bag, to be honest, but just to sum it up, I didn't like it. And I know many of you also did not like it. Now, when the games are happening, when they're competing for their lives, it's great. And it's just like the first season, which was great. The problem for me was that there were only 3 games altogether. I mean, the first one, they redo a game, and so that doesn't really count because it's like, I've seen this before. And when they redid it, it was sort of boring because it just was repetitive. Him yelling stop over and over, the same thing over, if you haven't seen it. So anyway, there's only 3 actual games, and like all together, they maybe last 45 minutes if you combined the 3 games and like their runtime. And just for the benefit of the doubt, to make it a little more simple for what I'm about to say next, let's just say that altogether those 3 games lasted 1 hour of on-screen time, okay? So there are 7 episodes, an hour each. So what's happening the other 6 hours of Squid Games? Because it's not games in the Squid building. So at least 2 of these 6 hours are spent seriously just watching people vote over and over. It is so monotonous. These scenes are so long and there's no tension because as the viewer, you know which way the vote has to go. In order for the series to continue, right? In order for us to keep watching the show, I already know what you guys are going to vote for. So the fact that we're spending so much time watching you vote, I mean, it's already like, think of some of the most boring things you can do. You got watching paint dry, watching your dog go to the bathroom when you take him out, and watching someone vote. I think that those would be like top tier, just like boring things to do. So the fact that they included so much time watching the players vote on whether or not to stay was, in my mind, just like a total waste of our time and very creative decision by the creators. Then you have another 2 hours. So out of the six, you got 2 hours voting. You got another 2 hours that are just spent on the B plots taking place like outside of the games, which is not an interesting subplot. And the whole time you're just waiting to be like, well, I want to see the next game. Like, take me to the next game. I don't care whether or not you guys, you can't find the island. I get it. You can't find it. So 6 episodes later and you still can't find it. I mean, give me a freaking break. So that story doesn't progress, and that's the issue with it. And then the last 2 hours are spent on Thanos guy and the gypsy lady, just AKA the bad characters. I felt like they were all just unlikable and uninteresting, especially compared to the first season where it felt like a little more real. These characters felt like more like video gamey or just like caricatures. So it just was unengaging, boring. Like I said, when these 3 games were happening and then the last, there's, stuff goes down and that stuff is fun and interesting. But like as it starts ramping up, it's like, oh, just kidding. Like we cut this in half actually. So we'll see you later in the year, even though we just filmed it all, which feels like unfair to the viewer, especially because we just spent 6 hours watching nonsense and boring content. So the least you could do is at least give us the full season so we can finish it and then not watch the 3rd season that I'm sure inevitably will come out. That's the other thing, is I don't feel like it really attached. I feel like the first season set things up and then the second season doesn't want to draw on any of those connections, which was to me, just they dropped the ball when it came to that part of the storytelling, in my opinion. Now, next up, Mr. Beast games. I feel like these two things are actually pretty closely tied together. The Mr. Beast games, if you're on the internet at all like me, you have seen them catching a lot of heat and how they're unfair, the things they're making them do. Jimmy Donaldson, he's a bad guy, blah, 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 all this garbage and drama. Well, let me just say this. I don't know Jimmy. I don't know all the blah, blah, blah. I don't care, right? I have watched his series on Prime, and this is what I have to say about it. It's awesome. It is really good. Those first few episodes especially, but every episode does it to where you're like, no freaking way. Like what would you do in this situation? Like, how would you act? What would you say? Who would you pick? Like, what decisions would you make? Like, you're being offered this much money. Like, this is crazy. And it's like that every episode is like, dude, this is wild that you're doing this. And it's just so much money being thrown at these players. And there are so many players, and they're asked to do these crazy things. And it is super fun, just super fun to watch. And I feel like any heat that it's getting is just because of the Jimmy drama that's happening around him. But the show is great. It's not really like my two favorite like reality TV shows are Survivor #1 and then The Amazing Race #2. They're my favorites in large part because of the fact that the control of like the player's destiny is in the player's hand more than any other reality TV show, where the choices they make, the things that they do, their abilities like mentally and physically and whatever else is what can get you to the end by being the best and by grinding the hardest and whatever else. There's not a lot of chance. There is chance, it's a game, so there are chance in those two, in Amazing Race and in Survivor. And that would be my one gripe with Mr. Games Beast in general. But like, that'd be only my gripe if like I was the one playing in the games. Otherwise, I mean, it's just fun to watch. But there is like 80% of the things they're doing, if not more, are just chance. Like 100% just like roll the dice and hope that it lands on 4 or whatever, because it's just completely out of your hands. That'd be my only like kind of gripe with it. And the other thing is you can kind of tell that it's not the like Jimmy's team is the one putting it on. Like it kind of has like a YouTube like lower budget, even though it's like that most money you've ever seen, and it's in this city and stuff. You can just tell by the way that it's filmed and shot and lit that it's just like it's by a group of people that haven't been doing it like The Amazing Race, like Survivor, like Big Brother, or whatever else, right? And so those would be like my two things. But if you haven't watched it, it's seriously a really fun watch. Every episode is fun, and it's fun to think like, freak, what would I do? Up next, we just have a delay. The delay is The Batman Part 2. It has been delayed to 2027. Now, there's different feelings when it comes to delays. It can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. For the most part, I lean on the side of like, okay, I'm down with the delay. If you're taking time to try and make it better, then then make it better, right? I just want good content. I want high quality content. So if that's why you need the delay, then take the delay. But a 5-year delay from the first one is when it starts to feel like this is no longer a positive delay. This is a negative delay, that there are issues when it comes to making the movie, the writing, getting a good team together, just everything, right? And so I think that The Batman has kind of entered that territory where things are a little scary because it just doesn't feel like they know what they want to do with it or where they want to go with it. So 2027, I mean, it's just barely 2025. I mean, that is far away. Christopher Nolan is making, he's on like essentially a 2-year loop, right? So every 2 years we get a full-fledged, full-blown movie from him, and it's a Christopher Nolan epic, bro. And like, yeah, Christopher Nolan, I think, will have released 3 movies. I'm trying to think when Tenet came out, but I'm pretty sure he will have released 3 movies before The Batman can have 2. And that's just crazy and not a great sign for The Batman. Did you guys know that if you want to, you can actually write into these shows and I will read your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your ideas, whatever, on the show. You just go over to patreon.com/AustinKoehler, right into the show. I'll grab them as they pertain to the different topics. And sometimes you guys will bring up topics that that aren't on my radar. And so when you ask me a question, I'll throw it into the news. So you can head over there, ask any questions you want to. I'll read them on the shows. Up next is some sad news. David Lynch passed away. He was 78 years old. Twin Peaks, Mullhollin Drive, Elephant Man. It's sad. It's kind of weird because I've been just recently, I was thinking a lot about him because his filmography is sort of a chunk that's missing from my my knowledge, because I genuinely don't really like the way that he films. I don't really love his movies, but it just feels like a bunch of movies that I feel like I need to watch and that I should watch to get just a better idea, different creative outlet, mind, creative process. And so it bums me out to think that he passed away, especially because he was in my mind. So it just feels like hits a little bit harder. He was only 78. You hate to see it. He's a lifelong smoker, if you didn't know. So it sounds like that's kind of what it was, at least tied to that. I mean, for anybody that smokes that much, it usually is somehow tied back to it. But anyway, thoughts and prayers out to David Lynch's family. We lost a big one. And finally, to wrap things up, Denis Villeneuve is still high on spice. He just recently did this interview. He's asked a bunch of different questions, and he was in the interview. He's asked this question, and he just said, "When I saw part 2 finished, finally, I realized that I'd done it, that I'd done a adaptation of Dune. And that is something that is just an incredible privilege. And I'm grateful to have the chance to have done it. I think my biggest surprise about this is that I don't want to run away from Arrakis. I'm still inspired to go back. That's the thing that I was the most surprised by. I felt like that after part 2 was done, I would need a break. I thought that I would go on to write a few new films or do a couple of things before going back to Dune Messiah. But the images kept coming back into my mind. The appetite is absolutely intact. That's the biggest surprise. I still want to go back to Arrakis." And there you have it. So the next thing we're getting from Denis is going to be Dune Messiah. He's going to wrap up the trilogy. The question that I have is that what we want Denis Villeneuve doing? He's top tier. Like, he has officially cemented himself in my mind as one of the best directors of all time, and the one of the most creative people of all time as far as film is concerned. And so it's like, well, should he be doing something else? Like, do we need more Dune, really? Like, what do we need to get another Arrival? We need to get something new, right? And that's my first instinct, is to want something new. But at the same time, the Dunes are incredible. I mean, like, on a different level, and they are original and they are new. So I feel like his energy and his time is well spent doing whatever he wants to do. Whatever he's most passionate about, Denis, go for it, dude, because that is what's going to be the best thing for you to make, right? The thing that you're excited about. So if that's Dune Messiah, make Dune Messiah, and I'm sure it'll be dope. And then I am excited to see like the next thing that you do, obviously. Like, it's just sort of, that's always in the back of your head where it's like, well, man, like what new world do you want to go to? What new thing do you want to do, right? And so I look forward to that. But I mean, I look forward to Dune Messiah to wrap up at what will be probably the tightest trilogy ever made, next to, like, it'll be right there with Lord of the Rings. I feel like what other trilogies are, I mean, Lord of the Rings has held that top spot for so long, and as long as Denis nails Dune Messiah, there will finally be a trilogy that will actually fairly be able to be in the conversation about like best trilogies of all time. So anyway, that is it for this episode. Thank you for watching. If you want to subscribe, click here. If you want to see another video, click here. Patreon.com/AustinKoehler. You get free perks there. You get bonus episodes ad-free. You get to write into the show. Like I said, I'll read your questions on this show and on any other show that it pertains to. So go head over there, check it out. The collaborator tier, where you get to write into the show, is actually free right now. So you can check it out and write in for free if you want. Just link in the description below. Thanks for watching. See ya.